Welcome back to another episode of First Use, and in today's video I'm going to go through Essendon and their performance against the Brisbane Lions. Even though they didn't win, Essendon after quarter time completely changed their game style. They went to, instead of going down the line, they went to a switch on the 45, take a risk mentality, which resulted in them in the last quarter actually getting in front. But it brought players like Caddy into the game. Caddy only had 0 possessions. That's right, he had 0 possessions in the first quarter. It's because Essendon kept on bombing it down the line. He was outnumbered. That brought Harris Andrews, Payne from the Brisbane Lions into the game. That was completely shut down in the last 3 quarters of the game, and that's why Essendon was able to get back into the game. So I'm going to run you through some clips and show you how they did that. So in this clip, this is in the first quarter, Essendon has it on the half-back line, and this is where they faltered. They weren't able to get it past their forward half. And when they did, they kicked it to a contest. They didn't allow Wright and obviously Caddy, who had a great game. They were kicking on their heads all the time, so they weren't allowing the spread. So this plays into Brisbane's hands. So what they like to do, particularly Harris Andrews, is to be in line with the goals. So if we draw sort of like a semi-line there of the goals, or if it's on the half-back line, he likes to be down the line. Where he gets exposed is if there's a draw the line, and this is where he ends up getting the ball, Harris Andrews, if you kick it off the line, and I've spoken about this in many videos before, the ability to then get him moving, get him on the spread, get him looking around, and I'll show you a clip where he's exposed. So they were just happy in the first quarter. They didn't hit these kicks. They did in second, third, and fourth quarters. You'd see they want movement, so that's already pre-planned. They want to move, but because he goes, I think it's McGrath, then just is happy to bomb it down the line. He's just happy to bomb it down the line, and this is where Harris Andrews has a field day. Caddy didn't have 1 possession in the first quarter, and what a game he played. But it was because Essendon but went back to their strength, which is the ability to spread the defence, switch the ball from the half-back line, get their slingshot footy going, and that's why they were able to get back in the game. The other thing they did is they played on by their hands instead of actually playing on by their feet. So allow their teammate to take the mark, get back off the mark, and then switch again. So this is what plays into Brisbane's hands. So if you great mark here in defence by Dersma, but instead of actually kicking, he gave the hand pass. So it put their teammate under pressure. So it forces them to make really quick decisions. Whereas in this situation where you see the clip, you have 2 players going out free. So they sort of, in the first quarter, it was almost like they were too scared to actually take those kicks. And with the score result at quarter time, it almost like woke them up saying, hey, we've got nothing to lose here. Just try and go for these kicks. And that's what they're able to do in the second, third, and fourth quarter. So they gives the hands, and there you go. You got 1, 2. So it was just, that's the structure that they wanted to play. They just weren't doing it in the first quarter. Then they kick it long, kick it to a contest, and Berry marks it. So there's another turnover. So there's so many turnovers in their back half in the first quarter for Essendon. So they kick it out. Dersma's got it here. Not picking on Dersma. This is just what happened in the first quarter. And you'll see they get players here. So this is how they want to play. And it wasn't like Brisbane was squashing it. Lohman's sort of going back. He's hedging his bets here. So it wasn't like it was really squashing that switch kick. And you'll see in the following clips when Essendon did it really, really well, they took the risks and it paid off. So it's just, and this is what they want to do. They want to get their switch kick, and then they want to get players from this area to get on the 45, to spread the defence. You might have seen recently on Fox Footy where Adam Simpson talks about that the extra layer, the layer outside, and that's exactly what Essendon was able to do. So then Dersma gets it. He's just happy to kick down the line, and this is why he didn't have any opportunity to get any one-on-ones in the first quarter, because they were just happy to bomb it down the line. Then they get the numbers, and then out they go. So it was evident in the first quarter that they weren't allowed, the way that style of footy that Essendon was playing wasn't allowing for their ball movement to be successful. Now what's the change? So this is the third quarter. They did it a fair bit in the second quarter, but certainly in the third and fourth quarter. So stop playing the half-back line. So you go back to the first clips I showed you and just watch the mindset. So good, clean hands, coming at the ball. But watch Archie Perkins here at the bottom of the screen. If I just go back, he's just here. And you see the hand gesture. Slow it up, sorry. So it comes through, you see his head bob there, but his hand is going like this. Kick it, go sideways, go this way. So he's encouraging his teammates to kick it over here. So he takes off. And look who he gets on the end of it. So really good lateral spread, really good offensive run. If he doesn't get used, this is the strength of having guys who spread. If Zach Bailey's close to him, so there's a one-on-one, what does that create? It creates space behind. So then it allows some other players to actually spread, and then you start owning the corridor. If Archie Perkins doesn't run, this offensive, hard running, one, they don't get the spread, but two, they won't get any opportunity to go through or someone else to come into that space from in behind. So really good offensive run. And this is what they started doing, particularly in the third quarter. So this is in the third quarter. So here's a comparison compared to what happened in the first quarter when they got on the half-back line. So pretty much identical position. Running laterally. Right, so spreading the defence, keeping them honest. So they get on the half-back line, they go back off the mark. Watch Archie Perkins here. Really good awareness. But its ability to hit this kick. So it's a bit of a slow play. Still setting here. Then pulls the trigger. Then they pull the trigger. So really good. So keep the defence honest. But then you've got the setup here. And then that other player that I showed you that had already bolted. Here's the space now. So they still want this switch. So all of a sudden, you're eliminating all these lines players and the other ones down the line. So really good. But you've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to run. So see how these players now are on the outer ring of these lines players. So you're keeping them honest. Great work by Martin. So folds into that space. They take it. Now what this does, it allows a larger switch. Get back off the mark, and now pulls the trigger. Now you've got one-on-one, but this player needs to then move to make it a 2-on-1, and that's exactly what happens. So ball goes in dispute. So they take this risk, and they did this particularly in the second half. The Bombers, they took a risk. They took those 45 kicks, but then they just made sure they got numbers to the ball. So in dispute, comes through. Great running from Pryor. Great running, great offensive running, but also great support. And now look at you've got one there, and you've got one there. So the outer ring. So all these players have then gone onto the outer ring. You eliminate these players here from Brisbane who are waiting for that big bomb down the line. Now you're getting them to work honestly. Caddy's movement, outstanding. Look at Harris Andrews. Harris Andrews, once again, in line with the goals. Even though but this is a great kick because it goes over his head. Goes over that +1. So there is going to be times where the +1 gets in the way, but then you've got to actually have the courage to kick over the top. Not try and pinpoint these kicks. Gets back off the mark. Gresham gets it in. Really deep. Now Harris Andrews is in no man's land. Great kick. Great mark. And this is the one that Caddy plays on. But you can see the switch. You can see the mindset already from Essendon as compared to the first quarter. Once again, this is a great switch of play. Caldwell, what about his third quarter? 18 possessions, unbelievable. So just the way they move. So I think that's Martin. He's the one that ends up getting the goal. A check side on the run inside forward 50. He ends up kicking it down here. But look at Caldwell. Facing that way. Not even worried about going down the line. Switches on. When you switch, now you need to have these runners going. You need to spread out. You need to go. And like I said before, hard running then creates space here. But in this situation, they do it really, really well, Essendon. Now you're on the outer ring. You've got one there, one there. It's a good hard running. Good kick. Out in the space. 1, 2, 3. You've separated the outer ring of Brisbane. Once you go though, you've got to try and play on. They stuff it up a little bit here, but still they've got the spread. Who did I highlight before? Martin. Look at that offensive run. Still there. Just keeps staying involved. Create the numbers. Great front and centre from Gresham. You watch Gresham here. I love this. You love this from a small forward. When they come to the contest, but they don't rush. So they all of a sudden just stop. Bang. He's gone past the contest. Gresham, front and centre. Brilliant play by a small forward. Great hands. And look who gets onto it. Check side goal. So it was an awesome switch of play that Essendon did in the second and third and fourth, particularly in the second half. First quarter, they were just happy to bomb it down the line. That brought in Harris Andrews. That brought in Payne. It didn't allow for Wright and Caddy to have these one-on-one contests or in any movement. When you actually switch the ball, you create movement down the field. So let's get to the whiteboard and I'll show you a training drill you can put in place to create this switch of play. Okay, here's a drill that you can do just to create what we've just spoken about with switch of play, and it's a lot of offensive hard running on a 45. So you can start a stop play here, or you can start it with the coach, however you want to do it. You have two players sitting here, and then on the skinny side you have a basically one-on-one. Right? So this comes into play a little bit with defenders too. They need to figure out. So essentially, how the drill runs is you run a stop play, and you might have some defenders here as well. You can create the numbers however you want. So essence is the circles win the ball, and then they switch. So you either switch it in the middle here, chip little 45, or you switch long down here. Once this play unfolds, it's the ability of these circles to just go, right? Offensive run. Just go on the 45 and just take off. Now you're basically going and you're offensively running, right? And taking a man with you. But what you're creating is you're creating the offensive run out there, and the defenders have to try and figure out whether to go to you or whether to try and get to this area to try and get the defenders. So and then you've got two defenders here. So essentially it's 4. It's 6-on-4. So you're playing footy, and I understand if you're in a confined area, so you can minimise this gap. But this is the drill that we used to try and do. So what you're trying to create is you're trying to get these guys, once you win the ball, is to take off. Right, hard offensive running. But by them running and creating to this outer side for the switch, exactly what we saw in the clips of Essendon, is you creating a space in here. But this is where the X's can actually clog it up. Because the X's are going to come off here, in this area, they might be able to try and clog up the corridor. These X's might be able to clog the corridor. That's where you need your foot skills to get out into this area here, and that's where these circles come into play. So you're forcing the switch. Of course you're forcing the switch, but you're also trying to train these circles to actually go on the 45. So they're pretty much sometimes the half forwards. So the half forwards are here. You might have a long down the line. So in a sense with Essendon, it was Caddy and Wright, and then their ability to spread back here on the 45. So then they're the long options. This is where the half forwards come into play. Probably heard the term the yo-yo, the half forward that comes up, then they're spreading across. But this is teamwork. This is about creating. So if the X's then clog up this space, you've got these outlets to use. And that's what Essendon did. They created space and they widened the oval. Really important. The only way you widen the oval is for these offensive runners to go on a 45, is just to take off. They might not get used, and you need to highlight their unrewarded running, as we call it, because they've created space down the middle. This is what Brisbane's actually really good at, but they actually were given a little bit of taste of their own medicine last night, because Essendon was the ability to take a risk, whether it was on the 45 in the middle, or the ability to switch and get these offensive runners going hard. So the Martins, the Archie Perkins, the Caldwells. So that's a really good drill you can do. If you've got a confined area, like the wing or something like that, it's something else you can put in place as well. So there you have it. I really loved watching Essendon live last night when I was commentating, especially after quarter time. The ability to actually take the risk on the 45, get into the corridor. They were really clean below their knees, even in wet conditions, but just the courage to spread. And it was the next layer. So the next layer from where their teammate had possession, the ability to spread on the 45 and separate the zoning defenders of Brisbane. And that's why they were able to get back in the game. And that's why Caddy was so good in the last three quarters, because in the first quarter, they were happy to bomb it on his head. But when they created that spread, they created that switch, he was then able to use his athleticism and get off Andrews. So great effort by Essendon. I love the way they played. That was the best I've seen them play all year. Hopefully now they can maintain the consistency for the rest of the year.